Carrie Lucas on the line with us. She is the Vice President of Policy and Economics at the Independent Women's Forum, IWF.org. And hey, Carrie, good morning or afternoon, or what is it?
It's definitely afternoon for me. I'm at Eastern Standard Time today, so good afternoon to you.
Welcome back to the United States.
Yeah, thank you.
Home of the world's most expensive health care. Okay, we won't do that. You're over at IWF. You folks are blogging about how President Obama is planning to bankrupt the coal industry. I don't recall.
That's his words, not ours. So
that's whose word?
That's President Obama's words, back from the campaign.
Give me the quote.
This was back in it came out towards the end of the campaign, although it had been done in an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle, where he said that his policies would essentially bankrupt the coal industry.
Can you give me the actual, a sentence or two that are in context?
Well, I have to pull it up here, Tom. I don't have it right in front of me, but it is on IWF.org, so so we can both check it out, and I can see what I can do on my computer.
Okay.
Here.
Well, here's one of my concerns. Burning coal is the leading source of global warming pollution worldwide. It's the dirtiest way we produce electricity in the United States. There are no homes in America powered by clean coal, quote, clean coal. It's actually an oxymoron. There's no such thing. There have been no commercial-sized test projects. There's been nothing. We have 600 coal plants in the United States producing electricity. Not one of them captures and stores its global warming pollution. Saying clean coal is like saying a healthy cigarette. Perhaps we should, first of all, I don't believe for a minute that Barack Obama has any intention of bankrupting the coal industry. I think the Democratic Party is getting way too much money from them. But nonetheless, perhaps we should make coal a whole lot more expensive with a carbon tax or something like this, because this is, we're looking at the Arctic now is melting faster than ever.
Well, I think we need to be real careful on when we start saying things like the Arctic is melting faster than ever, because while it seems like in some places it's melting, in other places we have icebergs expanding. There's some reputable scientists out there who now are concerned that because of the dearth of sunspots that we're actually entering a cooling phase, which could have just even more potentially damaging effects on the world in terms of prosperity and people's health.
Oh, Carrie, you believe that stuff?
Yeah, Tom, I do. I certainly believe that the jury is out. We don't know for sure that there was, that there is man-made global warming going on. But I think you and I can disagree about that, and I think that there is a lot more disagreement than the media would have you believe.
No,
but what I think is really important, is that when we talk about things like bankrupting the coal industry, which President Obama definitely ran away from that after he had made that comment and assured people that that wasn't his intention. But it's clear that his intention is to essentially tax carbon, which would increase our energy prices. And I think that people need to be real honest about just what this means in terms of job creation and in terms of how much money we're going to have. There are real costs. Most estimates have that if we institute a cap-and-trade program, that we're looking at a couple $1,000 more in energy costs.
Actually, the quote that has been echoed over and over and over on right-wing sites started on Fox News of $3,000 per person, the light switch tax. When you go back and you look at the original study, and this has been well debunked, the Washington Post first debunked it, they were talking about $300 per family in the United States.
Okay, well, I know that if you look at the stream of income that President Obama is banking on from the global warming, from a cap-and-trade system, it's a lot of money. It's hundreds of billions of dollars, which means that's money that we're paying in higher taxes. That's how it's going to, or how higher costs. That's how.
But see, we're already, Carrie, when we're burning coal, we're already paying that. We've got hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Americans who are suffering diseases that are costing us both lost productivity and money as a consequence of everything from the mercury that's in that coal. Burning coal is the primary source of mercury in our atmosphere. Many people are linking this to autism. The carcinogens that are in the coal, the soot that's in the coal. I mean, one of the leading causes of lung cancer is the soot that's in our air. There's enormous externalized costs that the coal industry has never had to bear, that you and I are paying for with our tax dollars, and we're paying for with lost productivity. If we move to cleaner forms of energy, good riddance to the coal industry.
Well, but there is certainly would be environmental benefits if we all just if all the power shut off, we all stopped driving cars. That we would certainly think could be cleaner.
No, I'm saying, why don't we do what Denmark does?
Which is what?
Denmark put up enough windmills that they could generate 18% of their electricity through wind power, and now they're in the process of, with a fairly substantial government subsidy. We did our show from Denmark for a week, and we talked with the vice president of the country and one of the ministers who's putting this thing together. Now, with a government subsidy to one of the automakers there, they're putting together. They hope to have 5 million electric cars on the ground within 5 years, and these electric cars at night, when the windmills are producing electricity that nobody needs, will charge, and then during the day you drive your car to work and you plug it back in and you sell the electricity back into the grid at a higher price than you paid for it. So the consumer's car becomes the storage battery for the electricity, and you can actually make a profit doing this with your car, buying electricity at night for cheap, selling it back into the grid during the daytime for a little more money. And it's going to increase, without adding a single windmill, it's going to allow them to power over 35% of the nation with the wind power that they have right now. At the same time, they're aggressively building more windmills.
Well, yeah, I mean, where are we putting our windmills, Tom? I thought that basically we've talked about, there's been a lot of talk about putting windmills, but the environmentalist movement basically says that there's no place that would be acceptable for windmills to be.
But that's not true, Carrie. We've got windmills are going up all over the United States.
Okay, well, I know that there was a recent dust up where they were thinking of putting, I believe it was windmills, perhaps it was solar sheets in deserts in California, and the environmental lobby was willing to crush that. And Governor Schwarzenegger was talking about how if we can't put alternative energy plants up here, if this isn't considered an eyesore, we don't know where it's going to be, off the coast of Nantucket.
Well, how about the roof of every house like they do in Germany? They've replaced 2 nuclear power plants simply by giving subsidies to people to put solar panels on their roofs.
And there has been very little success when you look at Europe. I don't know the Denmark example, but I know that in most of Europe, most of these attempts to create alternative energy in a real way to replace dependence on things like oil and natural gas haven't gone very far and have not been that successful. And the only place that has been really successful in using something other than oil and natural gas is France, and that's because they depend on nuclear energy.
Carrie, we are 4% of the world's population. We generate 25% of the world's greenhouse gases. The average European uses 1/7 the greenhouse gas producing forms of electricity and other fuel that we do. Their standard of living, as you know from having lived in Austria, is no lower than ours, and some would argue is much better than ours. And the way they do it is with things like good public transportation, city planning. I mean, these things that I suppose you would call socialist, but they do it, and the biggest way they do it is by taxing carbon. For the last 40 years, more or less, they've been slapping about a $4 a gallon gas tax on gasoline and diesel fuel.
I think we should, when we keep talking about how the Europeans' incredibly high standard of living, and there's I live in Vienna, Austria for most of my time, and it is a beautiful, wonderful city, but it is important to know that people are poorer there. People have many fewer children, in part because it's really expensive to have children in Europe, because everything costs so much. I've been back in the
But people get well paid there, too.
Well, I don't know, Tom. When you look around and people are living in much smaller quarters than we are than we do, they don't travel as much. Most people aren't traveling around Europe. When you go out into the outskirts of Austria,
but they're happier, Carrie.
I don't know about that, Tom. And that's a question we should ask Americans. Is you've decided that it's better for us to live in smaller houses, to not travel, to be a little poorer, but we'll be happier because we'll have this. Be using green gas.
To have community. to have the things that are important, to have family, to have cities that
They
work.
don't have families. They're not having babies. They have about the birth rate of just over one. That's one of the ways that Europe is committing suicide, and part of it is because
Europe is becoming rational in the size of their nations, I would say.
I'm becoming less rational. I'll be having a baby within the next two weeks here, so I'm doing great economic.
Well, good on you,
environmental
Carrie.
harm.
Good on you. You're in that case. We'll say a prayer for you, and I wish you the very best. Good luck in your pregnancy and your birth. Carrie Lucas, IWF.org. Thanks, Carrie.
Bye.